All right, guys. Well, we'll just go ahead and get started as people are jumping in. I'm so excited to get started today. We have a special guest with us. As always, guys, the purpose of this call and this discussions that we're having specifically in the new year is to really just inspire you guys and to help you guys better understand the nuances of business, the nuances of entrepreneurship, what it takes to be a leader, what it takes to stand out in the market, the sacrifices that we make every single day as businessmen, as businesswomen. And last week we had Mika Rosendahl on the call with us, and it was just a really good time. It was just so good to hear about the DNA of inspiration. And today I want to talk about a subject that, I think is so important when we're talking about entrepreneurship, when we are talking about business development, when we're talking about how to conduct yourself, your vision, the plans that you have, your time, whether you're on a team or whether you're leading a team, whatever it may be, that this fundamental principle of being a critical thinker, and this is something that I'm so excited to talk about today. And I don't think there's anybody better, in my personal opinion, that could talk about this topic than Mr. Jake Prieur. I'm really bad at my last names, but I'm always butchering it, man. I am so sorry.
It's all good. All good.
I'm gonna get it one day, but it's just an incredible privilege of mine to be able to have Jake with me today. I've known Jake for a long time now, and I'll let him introduce himself and say his last name correctly. I'm always butchering last names, but I'm getting better at that. But it's just been such a privilege to walk with Jake over these past few years. And as I said, I believe there's no better person that I know of that could really help us better understand of how to become a critical thinker in business. What are the challenges of being a critical thinker? What are the advantages of being a person that thinks ahead, that thinks into the details? And so today, I just want to welcome Jake Prieur.
There you go. You got it there.
I got it. I knew it. I want to welcome Jake to today's discussion. Jake, the floor is yours. I'd love for you just to introduce yourself, let everyone know a little bit about you before we get started today on today's discussion.
Yeah. Well, I apologize. Prieur is a French-Canadian last name. So on top of you having to know Portuguese and Finnish and English, you're now having to pronounce a French-Canadian last name. But yeah, my name is Jake Prieur. I'm the co-founder of VideoScale, which is an agency, a video editing agency here in the United States. But we have a lot of people on our team who come from Humify that are across the globe: Brazil, Germany, Egypt. You name it. Our team is pretty international, which is, I think, hilarious because none of us have aside from a few people on our team, none of us have actually met each other in person. But that's the beauty of our business. That's the beauty of working with Humify. And what you guys do is that you guys can build a life together. You guys can build a business together and do it without having met each other before. But like I said, I'm the co-founder of VideoScale. There's a couple of things I do. I'm also a real estate investor here in the United States. And so I spend a lot of my time really focusing on the aspects of real estate investing, but then also growing VideoScale, which is a fairly new business. It was conceived probably, in thought, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, but it was only launched about a year and a half ago. Thankfully, Ryan was right there along the way, and his team to help kind of guide and give wisdom along the way. And we eventually launched about a year and a half ago and have, I think, about a half dozen people on the team. So steadily growing. I know some of the team is already on the call today. My background, though, is in marketing and operations. Worked at a couple Fortune 100 companies, so some very big companies. Worked at some startups, and even started a handful of creative agencies along the way. And so talking about critical thinking, talking about problem solving, you only get good at those things by messing up a lot of things and causing a lot of problems so you can resolve them. So I'm excited to get in to talk about critical thinking, problem solving, and answer any questions you guys might have.
Well, Jake, thank you so much. And it's so clear that you're not a novice at this. This is not, your time around the block. You've had experience, you've had your ups, you've had your downs, and our goal today is to really just kind of pick your brain and to understand a little bit more about, not just your background, but the experiences that you have been through and how that's really shaped you as an entrepreneur, as a leader, and as a person that is just always looking to expand and to scale and to grow and to, empower people's lives. Because I know you also have, you're very mission focused as well. We've had those conversations. And so I really like just kind of go back. Let's kind of go back a little bit into like kind of just the beginning phase. And I think we can start with first with, I think it would be really, really interesting for you to talk a little bit about Skyline Point Capital, if you may. I think that's a really interesting, really an initiative that you're working on. And then we can talk a little bit about Video Scale, because I know they're two completely different, things that you do.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a really good question. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
But share with me a little bit about Skyline Point Capital. About what led you to work with Skyline Point Capital. What is it that you do there, and what are some things that you've taken away over this period of working with this really interesting business?
Yeah. So to give you a background of Skyline Point Capital, I think it's helpful to understand how I got there to begin with. Prior to starting at Skyline Point Capital, which is the real estate investing business that I help run, I had started a couple of creative agencies with a close friend of mine. And we had run it and grown it for a number of years, and it became clear after a while the Lord was calling me out of that season of life. It was a very abrupt, choice by the Lord. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't anticipating it. I wasn't very happy about it to begin with. But the more I prayed about it, the more I thought about it, the more I talked to my wife and friends and family about it, the more it made sense, and I got on board with it. So when I exited the creative agencies and left them with my partner to take from there, I really prayerfully considered, Lord, what do you have for me in this season? What is it that you've gifted me with? What is it you've trained me with? And how do you want to use that? And it was the discussion of Skyline Point Capital only came up because I prayerfully considered, well, who in my group of friends and family should I be talking to and sharing about what the Lord is doing in this season? And I reached out to a close friend and asked for his prayer, asked for some wisdom, because he's a great businessman and really wise, and I covet his thoughts. And he made a connection to somebody I had known for 10 years but hadn't really connected with in a while. And he had said essentially, hey, this guy's looking for somebody with your skill set. And I know you're a curious person. I know you love to learn and grow. And I think you'd be really good at this. And so I jumped at the opportunity to get a coffee with this gentleman who runs the real estate investing group. And it was just a very fortuitous and divine appointment where the Lord had, brought two people together who are looking for each other, so to speak. To kind of touch on why it's, how do you manage real estate and manage creative agency, is the skill set that I have besides operating businesses and trying to grow them is selling people on the value of what we do. And so my job in both really is on the Skyline Point Capital is educating investors on the value of investing in real estate and educating them and encouraging them to invest. It's very similar to what I do at Video Scale. I have a team of editors who are excellent at what they do and account managers at what they do. And I try to not get in their way as much as I can. But my job is really to sell Video Scale to customers. And so I have that skill set that I can apply across both. And so I think as you guys think about your future is how do you take your skill set and apply it to broad and general industries? Because although they seem very different, for me, I'm applying the same skill set across the board.
Powerful. I think that really kind of goes into the whole subject of critical thinking, of how to analyze where you're at, how to create parameters, systems, processes, a framework, how to think
Hmm.
beyond. Like you said, you're able to you apply your skill sets across these two vast and different, spectrums, but you're able to be effective at the same time. And my question to you is how do you nurture that? Like, is that just something you're born with, or is that something that you have developed over the course of years? What are some things that have really helped you in this area?
Yeah, I think there is some aspect of it being intuitive and like you're born with it. But I think it's also a muscle that you can grow and work and get better at. And so, for me, I am a very curious person. I love to learn. I love to achieve, and so I am constantly looking for opportunities to better myself and to grow, and then to apply those things to new opportunities. But I think one of the skill sets I think is probably more important than that is just being prayerfully considerate of opportunities that come your way, and in being open-handed in what God's giving you. As if you're constantly closed-fisted with the things in your life, then not only is God not able to take it out of your hands easily, but He's not able to put things into your hand easily. And so I think what's just as important is being able to trust the Lord and say, hey, you know, this is not mine. This is yours, and I'm just here to be a good steward of it. And so always thinking about, like, how can I apply what I do to different areas and learn and grow at the same time. So I think being patient and prayerful in those seasons is a key attribute to being able to do a multitude of things, or finding ways to apply your skill set in areas that maybe don't seem like a natural fit in what you've been doing in the past.
That's so good. It's such good insight. And I think you touched base on something that I have seen personally in you. And I always told you I was just I look up to you a lot. I look up to you as a man, as a friend, as a man of God, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a visionary. One thing that I've always noticed about you is you're just so curious. Like, you're a very curious individual, and in that curiosity, when you're curious about something, and when you're asking the questions and you're evaluating things, what are some things that you do personally when you're receiving this data, when you're gathering this data and you're learning about so many different types of things? What are some practices that you do? Do you write things down? Are you like a journaler? Like, do you journal? Where do you store it at? What are some things that you do that maybe other people
Yeah.
would learn from here, and exercising that muscle that you talked about?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it comes down to, I mean, I definitely journal. I'm definitely writing down notes and collecting information. I think to make good decisions and to constantly be improving, you've got to be not only patient, but you've got to be collecting information from different sources. And so I think it's really important to be prayerful throughout the whole experience, and to see, all right, Lord, what do you have in store for me? What is it that you would like me to do in this moment, or in this season, or with this decision, or with this problem? But then also to have wise counsel around you. And so surrounding yourself with people that are constantly learning, they're constantly thinking, they're constantly doing, because they'll have a wealth of experience and knowledge that they can share with you. A lot of times they've accumulated this wealth of knowledge through their own bad decisions and problems they've had to resolve, and so you're able to take a costly lesson that was costly for them, and utilize it without it costing you the same that it cost them. And so surrounding yourselves with people who are very wise. But I wouldn't surround yourself with people who think like you, because you end up with a group think mentality, meaning that you all think the same. And so the answers you're going to get, or the advice you're going to get, is going to be exactly what you probably would have thought of yourself. So surrounding yourself with not only wise, but a varied group of people to give you advice. and then just collecting all that data and letting it marinate, letting it kind of develop into a game plan. In making these sort of like hard life choices or pivots or even problems within your daily work is I try to be patient in those decisions. You know, assuming it's not a critical, like I need to make a decision right now. I try to be patient with it. I try to let my emotions get out of me and let just logic and information dictate how I move forward. But in like the critical decisions, or I have to make it today, you know, utilize the information you have and make a decision quickly, but then be willing to change the decision if you realize that, oh, that probably wasn't the right decision. So be willing to pivot quickly in that moment.
That's words of wisdom right there, guys. And I think it's just it's so needed to hear how you approach these things, how different people approach these things. And I think one thing that you and I can both agree on is it is so vital to find people that are better at doing things than you, that are different than you, and that are not afraid to speak truth and
Yeah.
to give that direction. And that's something I've seen over and time again. And we actually were talking with Mika about that last week on the call. You know, it's something I've been learning as I'm developing a new software for marketing, and I'm in like a wheelhouse that I have knowledge about the market, about the area of marketing and about this area, but like the development of a software that took me. Yes, I understand like the fundamentals and the variations, but like it was out of my wheelhouse. I was stepping out of my comfort zone, and for the first time in my professional life, I had to trust other people in the certain things that were being developed, and trust the process, and not be afraid to like ask questions and to give my opinion. Also sometimes hear like if they didn't necessarily agree or it wasn't the right way of saying it or right way of viewpointing it. So I love the fact that you said surrounding yourself with those people and not being afraid to be in a sense vulnerable around those people and those new experiences.
Yeah. You got to be humble. I mean, you've got to. The fastest way to learn and to grow and to succeed is being humble. Is to recognize, you know, God's given me a lot, and I'm talented in certain areas, but there's a lot of areas that I have a very limited knowledge in or have no experience in. And the more humble you can be, the faster you can acquire information, acquire knowledge, acquire learnings that you can then apply to your job or to the business you're building, or even just life in general. And so having a heart posture of humility, I think, gets you a lot further and a lot faster than this sort of like know-it-all mentality, which eventually you find out that that's not that helpful in business or in life.
Okay, I'm sorry if it's like super loud. I'm in the coffee shop here. The beauties of remote work.
Yeah.
I think you touched on, and I want to ask you this question: is what is your advice you give of when you don't have enough information, but you have to make a decision? What is it? What do you do when you're faced with this thing that needs to be solved, a decision that needs to be made, but you don't have all the information? What are some things that you do or that we could do as entrepreneurs, remote workers, visionaries to grow in this area?
Yeah, that's
grow still, but I know that this is one of your specialties.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it comes down to being okay with knowing that you're never going to have all the information. You're never going to have 100% accurate information, and so the best you can hope for is to collect whatever is available to you and make a decision from that. And so once you can get over like the hurdle of worrying about having the best and the full information, then it frees you up to make quick decisions. But like I said before, the key is if you're going to make quick decisions with a limited amount of information, or maybe even a limited amount of inaccurate information, then you need to be able to make quick readjustments after you make your decision. Because if you make a decision, you realize it's wrong, or maybe it wasn't 100% right, maybe it was mostly right, but not fully, then being able to evaluate it and say, okay, I recognize what we missed here, what was wrong. Let's make a quick decision to pivot it, to realign it, to make it a better one. And so, just being nimble and flexible and fearless, so to speak, in making those pivots after you've made the wrong decision. People are not going to fault you for making wrong decisions. They'll fault you more if you make a wrong decision and then stubbornly don't correct course quickly because you're prideful or not humble in your decision.
So good. I think that's something I've really noticed about you, and I've just really highly respected is specifically in our relationship and our partnership within Humify and within Video Scale. We've been doing this for a few years now, for some time. Is open communication. Like, we've always been really open with each other, right? And I think it's something in today's world. I don't know, maybe only in today's world, but it almost seems like sometimes people are afraid of like the full transparency, and if a decision was made but wasn't the right decision, to like pivot back. And we've had those moments, you and I, in our professional and business life, where we made decisions. Maybe I made a decision, maybe you made a decision, and then we realized, okay, hold on, this isn't working out maybe the way we thought it was, or hey, let's take a few step back to analyze and evaluate. And I think that for me, that's something that I learned from you, and then I replicated that in my own life, in my own business. And I think it's just so important. So like what you said is so true, is like you have to be nimble, you have to be flexible, you have to analyze the data, analyze what's going on. If you made a wrong decision, then own up to that wrong decision. Like you said, you be humble about it, and people will be less harsh about that posture than if you just, we say in Portuguese, finge que nada, like that. You just, act like nothing happened. And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, making the wrong decision or making a mistake is not a problem. That's actually helpful, because it helps you grow, helps you learn, helps you figure out what not to do next time. The problem comes when you don't learn from mistakes and then implement them going forward. So if you keep repeating the same mistake, now that could be problematic. But you'll hear a lot of entrepreneurs, especially like in the tech world, they say break things fast, because the faster you can break things or essentially create problems and fix them, is that you're able to then quickly learn how to be better, how to be more successful, how to not have that mistake or problem come up again. But it takes sort of a humble posture of saying, all right, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes here, but I'm going to be quick to evaluate them and then to correct them and learn from them, so we don't do that again as a person or even as a team.
So good. I want to transition a little bit into talking a little bit more about leadership, and again, these questions come from an understanding of I've observed you, I've evaluated you, even when I was working with you within that agency. We were working together. I remember the first days. That's even before Humify started. There's like, man, you were operating as the CEO of the company at the time, and so I just kind of saw how you operated as a leader, and I was just so encouraged at like how well you worked with people. And that's kind of, I want to talk a little bit about like working with others, and specifically like if you're a critical thinker, right? It's like sometimes people that are like super critical thinkers, they're very analytical, they think, they're very logical, sometimes have a very difficult time having relationships with people, of leading people. And so I want to ask you is, like, how have you overcome this? Because you are a critical thinker, but yet you're able to balance it. Like, you're so personal. I remember Jessica saying how much she loved working with you. He was a project, I think he was a content manager. Way back in the day.
Way back.
And I just loved working with Jake. So can you kind of bring us on this journey of how you, as a leader, although you're a critical thinker, analytical, you think how you're able to have good relationships with people, with whom you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is going to sound so weird, but one of the things my pastor told me and my wife when we had kids is we asked them, obviously you always ask, how can I be a good parent? Like, give me one piece of advice. And he always said, him and his wife always said, lots of love and lots of discipline, but consistency throughout. And so when I work with people, whether or not they're in video scale or anything else, even at Skyline Point Capital, I always approach it with a similar sort of mindset, which is holding people to high standards, but also giving a lot of grace. People have lives. They have things that happen. They have good days. They have bad days. They have, they might be doing amazing work one day, and they just, for whatever reason, things just didn't fall their way the next day. And so one of the things I've tried to do, and I probably screw it up a lot, but I try my best as much as I can, especially like with the video scale team, is try to set high standards for everybody, including myself, including our team, that, we're trying to do things really well. There's a certain way we do things to honor God, to honor each other, to honor our customers. And so we have high expectations consistently, but we try to have as much grace as we can when things just don't go the right way. That's a tough balancing act. The point of your question is you constantly have to be balancing that of the high expectations, but the high grace, but keeping in mind that these are people that we're hopefully going to be working with and doing life with for years to come. And so, you always want to ideally lean to the side of grace at all times. But then as far as to your question of like the critical thinking, for me, I might be always problem solving for like video scale, but I a lot of times will defer to my team because I recognize that they have a different perspective. They have a valued perspective. They have probably a great mindset or perspective of how should we solve a problem or how should we move forward with our business. For instance, I'm almost 40. I started video editing when I was 14, I think. So a long time ago. I stopped for like 20 years though. So although I've been around video for a long time, I've edited for a while, and I've run 3 different agencies that have video editing, I still will I'll give my team recommendations and thoughts that I have, but I recognize that the team of editors are far more skilled than I am. And so we try to have this sort of like combination of outcomes where we take what I've provided and what they've provided and make the best outcome possible. And so while you can still be a critical thinker and problem solver, you can still be humble and defer to people who have also a load of talent and skill and experience to create a better outcome than if you just did it yourself.
Good. That's really good. Are there any books that you kind of stand behind when it comes to creative thinking, critical thinking, management, leadership? Is there any books that you would recommend here that we could start reading?
From like more of a leadership standpoint, or more of just a general personal, like how do we develop those sort of skill sets?
Yeah, just more in general. I know that I remember you recommended us the book Traction, and that was an incredible book that we read and we apply here at Humorify.
Yeah.
Is there any other books that you're like, yeah, this is kind of what I stand behind? It doesn't necessarily have to be with leadership, but maybe just in life, so that way people can kind of grow in this, it's a personality that you have. And so sometimes people, they identify with that personality that you have and say, well, like maybe there's things that he reads or things that he does that I can, grow in or absorb more in that area.
This is probably going to be a very odd answer to the question, but I think one book that I found highly helpful was a book called Deep Work by, I think it was Cal Newport. And Deep Work, the book is about the importance of setting aside large chunks of time to go deep on a specific project or a specific problem or specific thought. We're in a day and age where things are happening so fast, and there's so many, Slack messages and emails and tasks to do that very rarely are we able to just sit down and set aside time just to think and to let our mind wander and let our minds work through information. And so the book really outlines how you can go about structuring your workday to give yourself the freedom just to sit and think. And the reason why I give that book as an example is because we're talking about a lot of critical thinking and problem solving and working as a team. Is a lot of those solutions can come from just simply stopping and thinking and not being distracted by everything else around you. If you could just sit down and let your mind sit with a problem long enough, good solutions will come from it. A lot of times we don't give ourselves that opportunity to sit with a problem. We just take what we got and make a quick decision, and don't give it the patience to solve it correctly.
That's so true, and I bear witness to that because just yesterday, this year I had one of my goals this year was to become an expert in automation. And it's been a dream of mine for almost 2.5 years now, of really growing in this area of automation and then with generative AI. So these are the two main focal points of my focus this year is automation and generative AI and machine learning. But specifically with automation, I finally was able just to sit down and like really kind of just start studying and thinking. There came a moment, and you hit it on its head, and I just love it, is where there came a moment where I had to just sit and be with my thoughts. And it was there because I was doing a pretty deep automation using, APIs and OpenAI.
Yeah.
And you can kind of get lost in there, and gets a little tricky when you're doing those things. And at that moment, and it was very like the type of thinking was very critical. I was analyzing all the data and trying to figure it all out. And I was kind of getting a little overwhelmed, and I wasn't able to make like calculated decisions. And then I just felt my heart, just sit, and just let the framework come to you. And it was so crazy because I was sitting there, and like you said, I was just like kind of letting those thoughts, kind of sitting in those thoughts and thinking about the framework and analyzing it, but not doing anything with it. And then all of a sudden the solution came out of nowhere. And then I went in and I was able to solve an issue, solve that. I was like trying to figure out for almost 2 hours and doing multiple different run throughs of the automation. And in a moment, I was able to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think the more, I think I wrote this the other day, is like, it's not necessarily in the doing that makes you a success, but it's the ability to analyze what needs to be done that will cause you to be a success.
Yeah.
So many times we're so busy trying to execute that we along the way of execution. That's really interesting. Well, as we come to a close, do you want to speak into that?
I couldn't agree more. That's all I was going to say is 100% agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, thank you. So give us, as we come to a close, and we're going to kind of finish this up with some questions that people are asking. So guys, we have 2 questions right now. If you guys want to start asking your questions, we want to give some time for that as we come to a close. But is there any advice, Jake, that you would give anyone maybe here that's starting their journey as an entrepreneur, or maybe even a remote worker? Is there any advice that you would give them as they begin this journey?
Yeah, I think the best advice that I can give, and I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, but the one that has always stuck with me, and I heard it from another entrepreneur years back, and it has been true, is that the advice I'd give is work your butt off. I don't mean like work 120 hours a week and work harder or longer. What I do mean though is is that this life as an entrepreneur or as a freelancer, if you guys start businesses someday, whatever the case may be, this life is one that rewards those who put in the hard work. It rewards the ones that go the extra mile. It rewards the ones that do what others aren't willing to do. And so I would say if you're starting out, put in the effort, put in the hard work, be curious, constantly be learning, constantly be, even after hours, be reading up on your profession, be adding to your skill set. So that way, as you continue to grow, not only are you going to be even better at what you do, but things are going to be easier for you because you're equipped with such high level skills. So I would say just work your butt off and continue to learn as much as you can, because I can promise you one thing is that this life is absolutely worth it. I probably work more and in doing what I do now as a business owner than I did working, a corporate job or someone else. I work for somebody else, but I would not change it for anything in the world. It is the best life, the best years I've had of any portion of my life. But it requires really going above and beyond what's expected of you.
Good advice, man. Such good advice. And I really appreciate it. It's simple, but yet profound, and it goes a long way for sure. All right. Well, we want to open up for some questions here, and we have this. So I'll just go ahead and show it here on the community. We have this is how can we effectively balance expectations with reality, especially when the constant pressure for results is always present?
I'll give an answer, but whoever sent it in, if any of these don't answer the question, please follow up with it. But how can we effectively balance expectations with reality, especially when the constant pressure of results is always present? I think it goes back to having high expectations, not only for myself, but our team. But that's where that grace comes in, is being okay with you're rarely going to hit that expectation. Sometimes you might exceed it. Sometimes you might fall short of it, but being filled with grace where, you're creating an environment where you and your team, it's okay to fall short. It's okay to have problems and have to resolve them. But to constantly be driving yourself to hit that high level of output, whether it's in the videos you're editing or, the sales calls you're doing or the project management. It's having those high expectations, but giving yourself the freedom to fail, because like we talked about, the failures and the problems that you resolve is how you grow, and it's how you get better faster. So I'd say if you can balance those two things, then you're going to end up in a pretty good spot.
So good and so true. And I think one thing that I myself have just done my best to help people understand is we are all going through this. It may not be evident for everyone, like it may not look like that for everyone, or you may be feeling, maybe you're hearing like, man, well, I'm just working way more than that other person is, or they don't understand because I'm working more and they're not working as much, or they expect too much. Here's the thing about real teamwork and a healthy company, what I believe, and people that are there to work is everyone's going through it. And maybe the CEO or maybe the COO, like the executive team, maybe it may not look that way, but you also have to understand every level has its challenges. Every level has its expectations. Every level has constant pressure. And so when we understand, like you said, that no one's going to be perfect, so open communication, that's the best way to balance the expectations. The best way to bring maybe a peace or calmness to the mind or to the body. And so I think for anybody that, I don't know who asked this question, I think it's okay, like you don't have to raise your hand. That's why we do this as anonymous, because I think it's important, is that balance, how you become balanced and how you can maintain balance is being communicative, being open, being honest, but also realizing that everybody's in this together, and everybody goes through just as they may be going through. So I think it's a great question. let's ask another question here. So let me see here. So check that one off. All right. What are the best editing softwares for you at the moment?
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
that's a better question for
I
my
don't
team than
know.
me. But I would say we're pretty. I don't want to say old school, but we're traditional. I would say that's probably a better way of saying it. We exclusively edit in Premiere Pro, but use the script quite a bit, and Opus Clip from time to time, just for little minor things. But for the most part, we're not using a lot of the AI softwares or things like that. But I'm literally probably the worst person on our team to ask that. I give our team a lot of freedom to use the softwares that they need to do their jobs better. We don't use it to replace any of their work necessarily, but if there's software that they feel like is going to be really helpful to them, then they usually bring it to me. We review it, we talk about it, and then move forward or we don't. But we use all the pretty standard ones for video scale.
It's wonderful. Yeah, I'm old school too. I'm a Premiere Pro guy, so that's where I land. Well, this is our last question that we have here, and again, thank you so much, Jake, for your time. So, how can we ensure, Jake, that flexibility in business decisions does not lead to permissiveness that compromises results?
That's a great question. That's a really good one. I think, especially if you're a business leader, you need to give parameters to your team, and so you want to give them let's call it a sandbox to be able to play in. And as long as they make decisions within that certain area, then they're okay. Now, as you go along and as they continue to do a better job and make good decisions, you can expand that sandbox or the decision, give them more leniency to make bigger decisions. So, for instance, one of the things that we haven't implemented this at Video Scale yet because it's still with me, but as we get bigger, here's one of the things, an example of that is our account managers down the road will have the ability to make financial decisions within a certain dollar range. So, for instance, if let's say we mess something up for one of our customers and we lose some time or whatever the case may be, our account manager will have the ability to give, let's say, a free product of ours to our customer to make make it right with them, or maybe give them a discount of, let's say, $250. And that's the parameter in which they can make a financial decision. They are not allowed to give a couple $1,000 product away for free. They're not allowed to give a discount of more than $250. But whenever they see fit, they can make a decision without running it by me to do what's best by the customer and for Video Scale within the parameters that I've set. Once they do a good job of that, and once they've shown we can trust them with that, we can expand that to say maybe it's a $500 limit going forward. And so, to answer your question, how do you ensure flexibility in business decisions but doesn't lead to permissiveness and compromising results, is give them a comfortable place where they can make decisions, and then over time expand that if they show that they're trustworthy and they can do it in a way that benefits your customers and your business.
That's a solid answer, and I 100% agree with that. And I think much is given, much is required.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes time to be given much. It takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of vulnerability, clarity, and with that, I believe, like you said, creating those parameters for those people, you have to honor that. So don't give the parameters and don't evaluate the parameters if you're not willing to see growth in that person, or to give more room for that person as they grow. So it's always a balancing act in leadership. So, well, Jake, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate your time, and it's just, for me, to have you here and to have the people that could participate on the call to hear words of wisdom coming from you. It's just for me, it's a blessing. I just really want to say thank you so much for your time, and more importantly for your brotherhood, for your friendship, your partnership. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where you're going to go with Video Scale and the other initiatives that you have.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was a blast, and would be happy to come back and answer any more questions on things that I've messed up and can give away for you guys so you don't have to screw it up next time for yourselves.
Yes, man, I'll definitely have you on again, go through some different topics, and just really excited for the future of where we're at together. And guys, you can always reach out to Jake, and we'll put we'll post this in the community, and then we'll put your information. So we'll put your LinkedIn, so people can maybe reach out to you if they want any other questions. Does that sound?
Yeah, that works. Yeah, LinkedIn or email, either one.
Awesome. Well, Jake, speak one more time. Appreciate it. Well, everyone, I hope and pray that you had a good time here and that you learned a lot from Jake. And this is how we do business. It's how we relate. Entrepreneurship is about networking. Entrepreneurship is about creating relationships that last. And I'm a testament on that. And I know Jake is too, that you can have friends and do business. And it's a great place to be when you can have that.